It is times like this that I can't help but ask myself, when does a filmmaker go too far? Hello YouTube, it is Adam Noyce from Adam Noyce, and welcome to another film review. But today we're going to be talking about something been wanting to watch for a while, quite frankly. But only recently had the stomach to watch it, and even then I kind of had to lay off the food, because I gagged quite a few times during the film, which I actually applaud it for actually making me gag. But, you know, whatever. But that is the 1980 Italian horror film Cannibal Holocaust. Now, of course, this movie definitely has a reputation. And what I mean by reputation is that, you know, it really is something when a federal judge goes up to you and is like, yeah, we're going to place you under arrest. I better turn on a light. There, that's a little better. Sorry about that. Now, I have no notes prepared for this because I literally just watched the film. Literally, not even like 20 minutes ago, I watched the film. And I kept thinking about it and thinking about it. I'm like, I gotta talk about this shit. Because this film really got to me. Like, okay, there's some things that I kind of like. The Italian horror films in general, like the Lucio Fulci films, have always kind of attracted me anyways, just because of how usually strange and bizarre they are. I mean, let's look at arguably Lucio Fulci's most famous movie, Zombie 2. And that's a very bizarre film. Great visual effects, great makeup, and great gore effects. And so when I found out, I'd heard, of course, this on several things. I've heard about this film on several like most controversial films ever made, the greatest banned movies ever made, you know? And that has always kind of attracted me to this kind of film because, I'll be honest, I like controversy. I've always been attracted to that kind of controversy. And what do I mean by that? I mean, I've been really kind of always just attracted to things kind of pushing the limits or pushing the boundaries of what we think of as stereotypically correct. Now, I'm not saying, oh, fuck the system. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying in terms of film, I like doing that. I like watching, it's always kind of attracted me, that idea of controversy. May and Evangelion, for example. And I also remember specifically when we made Don't Tread on Me the first time, I said I wanted it to be controversial with its gore, with its pacing, with its message, really. I said my sole purpose, and quite frankly, I don't think these are really how movies necessarily should be made, and of course there are exceptions, and in some ways Cannibal Holocaust is kind of one of those exceptions, but there are exceptions to what I just said. But I don't really think overall movies should be kind of made like that. I think they should be made in other reasons. However, what really finally made me say I really need to watch this was because I've been on a Sergio Leone kind of kick lately, because I just recently got Duck, You Sucker. Duck, comma, You Sucker, so I'm not saying duck. Like there's a duck in the other, whatever. And, yes, I actually had to explain that to people. Kind of funny. Anyways, but this film, back to Cannibal Holocaust. What makes this film... What made me want to watch this film was that Sergio Leone... let's see, I gotta find it here, because I have the Wikipedia page open because I wanted to quote this correctly and get some of these names right, because quite frankly, I think the people that worked on this film deserve to be credited. I really honestly think that. Sergio Leone said, "Dear Ruggero," I think that's how you pronounce his last name. I've never been very good with Italian names, so please forgive me if I pronounce that wrong, but Ruggero was the director of this film. He said, "What a movie. The second part is a masterpiece of cinematographic realism. But everything seems so real that I think you will get in trouble with all of the world." First off, it has Sergio Leone's stamp of approval. So I'm like, okay, it has to be pretty good. That guy, he was a geek for film. He's got a good taste in film. He also made good film, so that's just another added bonus. And so I was like, okay, I have to watch this. And I already knew going in about all the problems of this film. To be honest, I had seen Cinema Snob's review for the film. And I found it funny, but I didn't get it. Now that's what took up that 20 minutes in between, was I went back and rewatched Snob's review for this film, and I highly recommend it. It is really enjoyable and really funny in how it's put together, because it is a perfect spoof of Cannibal Holocaust. Now, seeing Cannibal Holocaust, I understand his review a lot more, and made me laugh a lot harder, because I understood a lot of the references that he was trying to make. However, let's go back quickly. I'm totally going off tangents here and just going all over the place with this film, because again, usually I have some sort of note structure when I'm writing something down or when I'm about to do one of these videos. I did it with the Borg, I did it with just about all my reviews, starting with 55 Days of Peking, and just about all the videos I do. I have not necessarily a script, but kind of notes to follow. Here I have nothing. I'm just speaking until I'm done. Hopefully I'll get everything off my chest about this film. But the director, I'm terrible at pronouncing this name, Ruggero Diodante. Okay, Ruggero Diodante openly stated that, one, he wished this movie was toned down in terms of its gore, which, okay, and I certainly understand why. But at the time, he wanted to make a movie that was disturbing for the sake of being disturbing. Excuse me. That was controversial for the sake of being controversial. And I haven't seen anything else by this man, by who directed this film. I've seen nothing else other than Cannibal Holocaust, so I have nothing really to go back to in terms of who he is, or in terms of what, he thinks of. And, of course, if you follow my AN Productions Facebook page, the few of you that do, which God bless you, you already kind of know my opinions or kind of overarching thoughts on Cannibal Holocaust just by that. However, I'm hoping to go into more detail here. But anyways, that opinion of him trying to make a movie that's disturbing for the sake of being disturbing kind of set the pace and tone right away. And another thing that I find very interesting about this film, and I'll just say this right now, the film is fucking gorgeous. It is shot absolutely beautifully. I mean, this film is often credited as being the first found footage film. Now, of course, that's very hard to prove, because like everything in film, stuff is hard to prove when it comes to being the first of something. It's very hard to prove that. It's like people saying Dracula was the first horror movie. Yeah, that's very hard to debate. Or that's very, very debatable. But the film is just gorgeously well shot, both acts, because really this film is separated into two acts. There's the first act, which is the character of this man named Professor Monroe, which I should know because I had a teacher named Monroe, so I should know this. But Professor Monroe is basically trying to find where these these documentary filmmakers, where they went. Are they alive or are they dead? And he basically just wants to find the film to see what they shot. Of course, this is in the Amazon, or somewhere around the Amazon. It's in South America, that's for sure. And these filmmakers wanted to go out and just film these cannibals, these cannibal tribes, because, they're savages. whatever. And the second half of the film is after he's found the footage and what's on the footage, and him seeing what's on the footage, which a lot of people go to the second act being the really good part of the film. And arguably, and I actually agree with this, the second half of the film is the more superior part of the film because of that found footage, and that's really it. It's just that found footage. I can't call it a found footage movie. I can't, because of all that stuff that isn't found footage. I mean, look at the entire first half of the film. There isn't one sense of found footage there. The only thing that's really found footage about it is that, which is another thing I'll hail about hopefully a little later if I remember, is the opening newsreels that sets up this universe, that sets up what the hell's going on. But the first half, I still think is extremely well shot and well composed. And then, of course, the whole thing, like, to me, this is how, I'm going to go on a limb here. Well, first off, what is my opinion, not that any of you really care, but my personal opinion on the found footage genre is that it can, when it's done right, it's done really right. When it's done wrong, it's just done wrong. Let's see, the latest found footage movie that I think was done, in my opinion, just my opinion, again, you can disagree or agree with me all you want. The best example I could have of that so far has been the very first Paranormal Activity. That movie was a wonderfully, in my opinion again, was a wonderfully done found footage movie. Cloverfield is kind of another example, but that's because I'm really biased towards the giant monster genre. But, you know, the Blair Witch Project is often quoted as being like the one that started it, but no, really it technically was this, because never really before, again, this is very arguably, but in terms of notoriety, never before really had a film gone this depth into like making it, this is the found footage, this is the actual film that we found, and blah 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 blah, and show it to us, and we have to watch it. However, the structure is what makes me say that it's not a found footage film. And let me get into that now. The structure of this film is beautiful. I absolutely love the structure, because when I saw Snob's first review of it, I was like, oh, it's structured like this. You know what, the only thing that I can really compare it to is Neil Blomkamp's District 9 was kind of done in the same style. However, I want to say that here in Cannibal Holocaust it is done way better. That kind of style of both mixing found footage with actual, you know, like production-wise film and also newsreels. It was done a lot better here because it is clearly mixed. There isn't like a mixing of genres that you get with District 9. Here it's pretty self-explanatory. It opens up with the newsreel, then it goes into the movie, then it goes into the found footage, and then it closes with the newsreel. That's what kind of goes on here. So on and so forth. Another thing I also like about this film is that kind of thing, there's multiple things that kind of go into this film as to like what they think the real message is, and they think it's full of allegory. I personally don't really think it is. However, I'll go into why this film was made, and I've already said that it was made just to be controversial and stuff like that, but I think Diodante, I think it's Diodonto. I'm going to say Diodonto because I see an O, but I've seen some people say Diodante. As I've just stated, he just wanted to make this as controversial as possible. And I think, actually, to be completely honest, he wanted to ask us, when do filmmakers go too far? A lot of them love their jobs, but when do they go too far? And it both goes literally with the film that we're watching, and it also goes, actually, with the film that people are watching. You know, there's two kind of parallel lines here, and you know how much I like parallel lines. Because there's so much... Cannibal Holocaust gets grouped in with the horror genre a lot. It's really not a horror film. The images are disturbing, sure, but horror is supposed to come up like you're supposed to be scared, you're supposed to be on the edge of your seat. You're never really on the edge of your seat here. You're just disgusted by what you're seeing. And it is very hard for me to talk about this film. It really is. I don't consider it horror, but the stuff that you see in this film, going back to when do filmmakers go too far, is so gross. It's so gross. And notice how I haven't talked about the animal cruelty yet. Because I was going to bring that up kind of here. First off, in my review, my overarching thoughts I posted on Facebook, I said, what disturbs me about this is, of course, most of, except for the animal scenes, most of the actual gore effects in this film, in terms of people getting eaten and so on and so forth, are fake. But they're not fake. They're using actual, this is a liver, this is flesh from like something and we wrapped it around this. These are bones, these are actual guts that we're using. This is actual blood even. And, you know, that stuff, I applaud him. I applaud Diodato, whatever the fuck his name is. I applaud him for doing that. I absolutely applaud him. I really do believe that this film is genuinely good. The only other thing I can compare it to really is Deliverance. Deliverance was another one of those movies that I heard about forever. And then I finally watched it and I was like, oh my god, that was so gross, I need to take a shower. This is another example of that. Except, honestly, I think this one's worse in terms of that feeling of ickiness. Like, I feel disgusting right now. I feel more like a pig now than I do normally. I feel more like this... I just feel terrible right now because of this film. And believe it or not, I applaud this movie for making me actually do that, making me actually have that feeling. Because that means the filmmaker did something right. Even though overall, I do think this movie is extremely enjoyable. Anyways, back to that kind of message of when do filmmakers go too far. So, he added Diodato, I'm sorry, I keep pronouncing his name wrong or whatever. He kept adding these levels of pure realism into the film that, you know, cinema actually on the episode of Creature Feature Double Feature, Andres brings up an interesting point. Kaiju Noir brings up an interesting point, is he misses the bright red kind of blood, even though it's not realistic. You see, Diodato here would never have done that, because he wanted pure realism, or as much realism as he can. And oftentimes, almost all movies, kind of borderline between realism and cinema. There's a tightrope between the two. Here, Diodato said, fuck cinema, period. Let's just go for the realism. Boy, does it show off. It's disgusting. This film is fucking disgusting. And it makes you just cringe seeing it almost right from the beginning. I mean, the first fucking scene that we really have this thing is on the fucking posters on Wikipedia, is this girl who apparently slept with somebody else, and this might be her husband or something like that, of this cannibal tribe. And because she's an adult, she committed adultery, he takes this dildo-looking rock, shoves it up her fucking hoo-da-ha, and then he takes a rock, or then he pulls it out, she's bleeding all over the place, and then he puts a fucking giant-ass boulder fucking rock thingy and shoves it up there, and then he beats her to death with a fucking rock. And you have Professor Monroe and Manuel and all those other people watching this, like, oh my god. But at this time, Professor Monroe is kind of like, yeah, this is really disturbing. He's kind of our voice in this matter. Even throughout the entire thing, he's kind of like the audience's voice. But everyone else is like, yeah, we've seen this before. It's kind of like that desensitization to gore and horrible acts of violence. But anyways, back to that message of when do filmmakers go too far, because that is exactly what the film crew, the documentary film crew in this, do. They go way too fucking far, and they've done this before. They filmed this thing down in Cambodia, I think that's where it was, but first off, the film did not show us fake executions, they showed us real ass fucking executions of children getting shot with this really eerie, haunting music playing. And we find out that this documentary was a huge success, and that's why this was basically getting funded. This whole trip to South America to speak with the cannibals was being funded for them by this TV company, and that's because that documentary did really good. And we discovered that they staged the entire thing. They staged all those executions. Meaning they're now responsible for the deaths of all those people. Now they take that a fucking step farther here in South America with cannibals, which I'm like, fucking cannibals, what the fuck are you expecting? But no, because these quote-unquote human beings aren't human beings at all, they're fucking monsters. And you see, what's also interesting about the film in terms of how it's structured is I love how during the first half of the film you get bits and hints there and there of just how fucked up those people were to the cannibals, making you ask the last line of the movie, who really are the cannibals? I mean, sure, the answer is yes, the people that eat other people, but I mean, really on the kind of allegorical sense or the metaphorical sense, who really are the cannibals? We who digest this fucking shit, or the people that are taking part of it? You know, that kind of thing, which I applaud the movie for making me think, anyways. But anyways, back to what I was saying. The first act of the film, the professor is genuinely curious. He genuinely likes the movies that they've made. He's like, these are great films. And he's just like, I gotta get those films. I need to find out what happened to them. Because if they're still alive, I want to get them home and see the footage. And if they're dead, then that footage needs to be seen so their legacy can be, you know, solidified. Or, better yet, what they did wouldn't have happened in vain. It's a very moral thing that Professor Monroe is actually doing, and also he's my favorite character. He's really the only character we can kind of sympathize with in this movie, but he is a genuinely good character. One is I like his balance of curiosity with the cannibals or the cannibal tribes, and I also like his sort of idea of I want to do what's right, which really comes out during the second act of the film. And of course, as the second act of the film, I love seeing his opinion of those fucking filmmakers change. Almost on 180. Like, there's a great line where he goes, yeah, but when they're saying, yes, the TV company's like, we want to make this documentary, despite the fact that they staged it, and he's like, yeah. And he goes over there, he's like, yeah, you haven't seen the last act of the film that the editors refused to touch. I have. And then he shows it to them. Whatever. Notice I haven't talked about the animal cruelty yet either. I don't want to talk about that. But these filmmakers are monsters. Now, at first, you kind of get them like, oh, they're cocky Americans. Really cocky, hippie, prima donna kind of Americans wanting to go out and make a difference in the world, when really they're doing just the opposite of that. And that's what we get, but as the fucking movie goes on, we see just how fucked up and how they have no moral compass at all. Even the girl, I think her name's Faye, yeah, Faye, the girlfriend of the crew, she has zero moral compass, except for the scene where they get this tribal woman, and all the men just start gang raping her. And they're filming it. And however, I was like, oh, maybe she finally grew kind of a backbone or some sort of moral thing, and she's like, stop. But then she goes, we only have 3 cans of film left. Really? That's what you're concerned about? You're concerned about that and not the fact that they're gang raping this poor tribal lady? Let alone the fact that there is another scene where they wanted to kind of, because they found out that for some reason they're like, first off, the whole thing of like, oh, let's talk to these people, let's find out about their culture, let's do all this, for some reason doesn't interest them, and they made up this like fake kind of war going on between these two tribes, one that lives in the swamps and one that lives in the tree. And so now it's kind of their fault that this huge fucking slaughterhouse is starting anyways. But after shooting a fucking pig, a live pig, in the head on camera, which I hate pigs, so I didn't really feel any sympathy for that fucking pig. Sorry, that's just my opinion. Please don't take offense to that. Suddenly, they get all of the women, children, and men, everyone in that tribe, and put them into this house, light it on fire, and let it burn, and make sure that they don't come out. Because it's good footage, because they wanted to make it look like this is another tribe's doing. They staged it, and they murdered all those people. Now you get hints of this. This is another reason why I like the structure of the film. You get hints of what these horrible fucking monsters do throughout the first act of the film. Like, for example, the first hint that you get that they did something terribly wrong. A lot of people say it's the turtle, but I don't think it was the turtle. I think the turtle was actually there because they were fucking hungry and they needed something to eat, so they killed the turtle and ate the turtle meat. That's my opinion on it. So I didn't see anything bad there. But when you saw that the woman, or this man, sorry, and this man's like, "Ah!" Are you screaming around, which was annoying as fuck. And suddenly you see this guy who's, I think he might have been dying or he was close to death. He got shot in the leg nonetheless. And you're like, how the hell did he get shot in the leg? Now, at that time, you could infer that they were attacked, and in self-defense, the filmmakers shot the dude. Okay. Even actually before that, you discover their guide, the filmmaker's guide's body, dead. Completely eaten and shit like that. Kind of reminds me that they walked onto the set of Lucio Fulci's Zombie 2, just how, like, the dead corpse kind of goes up because he lands on it. Kind of funny. However, but even then you're like, oh, he could have just died. He could have just died. And then you see the hut that was burnt, or you see what remains of the hut being burnt. It's fucked up. It's what these filmmakers, these aren't filmmakers, they're just fucking monsters, what they did. And yes, they do. They legitly piss me off because there are people in this business that fucking do that. There are people in this business that are that fucked up. Ever since the photographs have been taken. There's this great example of one from the Civil War, of this photographer, I want to say he was from Vermont, but I can't, please don't quote me on that, but he would manipulate bodies. He would manipulate bodies to make the battle scene look more interesting. Fucking monsters. You have no idea how disgusted that makes me as a human being. That makes me fucking disgusted listening to all that kind of shit and seeing it here. Yeah, I know, it's fake, Adam. It's fake. The movie is fake. Yeah, but the ideas aren't. The whole thing about these fucking filmmakers, and I just spit everywhere, the filmmakers doing this shit isn't. Because people do it. And it's disgusting. To me, they're not humans. These four filmmakers, they're not human. They're not. They're just pure disgusting, despicable creatures that don't deserve to lick the shit off of the bottom of somebody's shoe. They're not high enough for that. It gets to the point that the end scene, when all four filmmakers get killed, finally, you're rooting for the natives. You are. You're completely rooting for the natives. Like, kill those fuckers. And even then, when, I think his name was Jack? What's his name, Jack? He was one of the cameramen. Where is the cast on this fucking thing? There it is. Yep, Jack. Even when Jack gets speared, you know, and everything, and then he starts getting torn apart. First off, the image of them grabbing his dick and cutting it off, I mean, he's dead already, but... Ugh. Anyways, and then they start tearing him apart, like limb for limb and flesh for flesh and shit like that. Which I haven't even gotten into a lot of the gore scenes in this film. But anyways. But the scene where Jack gets it, they film him not only getting torn apart, but they then film him getting eaten until they strip it down to the bone. It's like they have no moral sense to just say, this is enough. This is enough. In fact, after Jack gets speared, you hear the director, his name was Alan, go, we're taking the Oscar home. You piece of shit. You fucking... You know, I'm personally worth less than the garbage because somebody takes care of the garbage. You know, somebody cares about the garbage, I should say. Nobody really cares about me. But this fucker. This fucker's the scum of the earth. I'm having a hard time here talking about this. But I'm going to keep talking, because that's what I do. So let's talk about the realism of this film again. This is when I'll start talking about the, believe it or not, really great gore effects, other than the animal mutilations. You know, this film went for such a level of realism. They actually used real natives. Of course, they weren't really cannibals, but the director actually used real natives in the area where they filmed this. And, you know, this movie makes me really want to know the making of the film. It really does. It's like I really want there to be a good feature-length documentary. Probably longer than a 90-minute film about the making of this film, because I would love to see it. I want to know how this movie was made. Yeah, I know there was a lot of production problems, and apparently Teodonto wasn't exactly the nicest director on the face of the planet to the natives, but I'm still very curious as to see how they made it, because they shot everything on location. And, which makes me applaud it even more, because you know how hard that is? It's so hard to do that. And yet this movie still came out, believe it or not, really well shot and really gorgeous. I mean, the film looks fantastic. And then all the gore and shit like that just... You know, the one that really actually makes me cringe the most, nobody ever really fucking talks about. And that is the forced abortion scene. The image of that native taking that fetus, throwing it under this rock, and then putting the rock back down on it alone was enough to make me go... And it's shot so utterly disgusting. It's so disgusting. You have the girl, she's clearly pregnant, stripped ass naked. There's a lot of nudity in this film, but that's to be expected. That really was to be expected. I didn't expect to see that much penis, though. Really wasn't expecting that. However, anyways, you see them cutting into her. I mean, it's obviously fake, but it's kind of not at the same time, because they actually used real, like, gore shit. And then all of a sudden they just... After they do that, first off, to add insult to injury, they don't just rip the baby out and say, off you go, which she'd probably die anyways. But they beat her to death with these rocks, which is something they do. They do that often. They did that to the woman at the beginning of the movie, too. Excuse me. God. God, this movie. God. God damn. Oh, it was filmed in Colombia? Yeah, it was filmed in Colombia. Okay, cool. So it was actually filmed in South America. I didn't know if they went somewhere in Asia or something. I don't know. Whatever. But Jesus Christ. And you know, it is really this controversy. It is, to be honest, the thing that I think solidified this film's place in cinematic history is this one aspect, and that is the animal cruelty. That is so terrible to say. But it was that animal cruelty, I believe, that really solidified where this film stands in the mark of history, in the mark of where it is in film history. Because this was made before PETA really started exploding. And thank God it did. Now, I've heard people go on to complain about people crushing spiders. I'm like, who gives a fuck about the spider? I give a fuck about the muskrat that they slit its throat and they film it bleeding to death. I give a fuck about the turtle that they chop its head off and you can still see it twitching as because it's not completely dead as they start cutting off the arms. I feel bad for the pig when they shoot the fucking pig in the neck. Because they actually shot the fucking pig in the neck. And you all know, people who follow me know how much I hate monkeys. They are horrible, disgusting creatures that all they do is throw poop at you and give you Ebola. That is the and AIDS. And AIDS, so add another one to that fucking shit. But I hate monkeys. But then there's a scene where they take the monkeys, and first off, the screams and the howls of the monkeys that they scream are real. But they show them actually killing the monkeys. Like, all of a sudden you see them put the head of the monkey down on the ground, and it's screaming and everything, and then you see an axe go down and chops off the top of its head. That's fucked. That's disgusting. And to me, there's almost no reason why it should be there. Now, at the same time, it didn't bug me as much as I thought it was going to bug me. Because, you know, I went into this film knowing full well that there was going to be a lot of animal cruelty in there. But it didn't bug me as much as I thought it would. And a part of me thinks it's because of where I grew up. Where I grew up on a farm area. I grew up in a farm area and a hunting area, and we kill animals. We do. We kill animals to eat them. I've shot turkeys, I've shot deer, I've shot a bear. I got a bear hanging up over there. But it was still unnerving to see at the same time. And I can't help but think that the director only put them in there for that shock value. For that realism. Because if you were to cut those out, what would be different about it? What would be different about the story? Nothing. Granted, the one that makes the most sense to me, was the killing of the turtle. The killing of the turtle, I think, made sense to me because they actually made a reason behind it. They said, we gotta eat. And you know what? The muskrat one made sense too. Because they're like, we gotta eat. We can eat it. So they ate it. You know, it makes sense why they're there. But when they shoot the fucking pig... And you can say that with the monkeys as well. I don't know. It's definitely an iffy situation no matter what you do. No matter which stance I take on it. It's an iffy situation. You're going to piss people off either way. So I'm just going to stay kind of quiet about it. But the number one thing that I dislike about this movie, because I genuinely like the film, but the number one thing I genuinely dislike about this film is the portrayal of rape in this film. Now, everyone knows, or people who follow me know, but I am a huge fan of Stanley Kubrick. One of the reasons why I don't watch A Clockwork Orange as much as I do is because of the portrayal of rape in that movie. Portrayals of rape in film legitly disturb me and make me so disgusted with myself and make me just cringe and just want to stop. And it just takes me out of the film. And you know, a lot of rape scenes I can also, like for example, the one in Clockwork Orange, they're fake. And I can always tell myself in the back of my mind, it's fake, Adam, it's fake. So I can kind of get past it, but I still can't forgive it. This film, I mean, yeah, it's fake, but it's the closest thing to real rape that I think a film has ever really come to. And it's not just that scene where they gang rape the native woman. You then see Faye getting raped too, as revenge. The natives raping her over and over and over again before they finally chop her head off. Which I was like, yeah, finally they chopped her head off, you know, thank God, miserable cunt. But at the same time I'm like, did you really have to show you raping her over and over and over again? I don't know. It's always bugged me. Rape in film has always bugged me, and this film is nothing but fucking rape. But I do like the film. I would like to be able to say I suggest it to everyone, that everyone I think needs to watch this movie, but I can't bring myself to do that. can't. I'll say it right now. I give the movie 3.5 out of 4. Mainly for its innovation and for how beautiful it is. And believe it or not, I believe its structure is pretty well. It's goddamn well structured, and I genuinely like the performances in the movie. Despite the fact that I hate the 4 filmmakers that are making that documentary, or I shouldn't say mockumentary at this point, but even that's giving them too much credit. But that film in there, even their performances are good. I can't deny it. Their performances, everyone's performance in this movie is good, so I'm going to give it 3.5 out of 4. Very not enjoyable movie. One of my friends, I forgot who said it. Please forgive me. But I know you watch my stuff. But you commented on one of my statuses saying, I can't say. I think you said something along the line that you saw it and you can't say you enjoyed it, but you can't say you regretted it. That's kind of my opinion on Cannibal Holocaust. I would definitely watch it again. But yeah, that's Cannibal Holocaust, everybody. There. I talked about it for 40 minutes. Fantastic. Bye-bye.